All right. It has been brought to my attention that someone may have made a statement during the course of the opening statement. I just want to indicate that everyone who is present in the gallery to not make any statements, comments, or otherwise, because any comment that could possibly be heard by the attorneys that also could be heard by the jury. So if you are going to make any comments, I can tell you that this court will otherwise remove you from this courtroom and exclude you from the courtroom for disrupting the process. So I just want to make sure that everyone who is present in this courtroom make sure that they remain silent during the course of this trial and throughout the introduction of any of the evidence and any of the witnesses. All right? Any opinions or otherwise need to be refrained from. Any comments cannot be made throughout the course of this trial. Again, if so, for the purposes of making sure that there is not any mistrial in this case, or that there is not any interference with the jury, or just the disruption of the process, I will exclude you from this courtroom. All right? Now, who's going to be your first witness is Mr. Sisco. If you all want to go get Mr. Sisco, and if you can go get the jury.
Your Honor, would the court inquire of the jury if they heard anything from the gallery?
I will. You can still bring him in to just sit there. You may be seated. I would like to ask just the jury just to make sure. Did anyone hear any comments made or otherwise during the course of the defense's opening statement? And everyone's shaking their head no, and there's no show of hands.
What?
Yeah.
Just any comment being made from the gallery or otherwise during the defense's opening statement?
No.
Okay, and everyone's indicating no for the record. All right, the state may at this time call their first witness.
The state calls Christopher Sisco.
All right. Mr. Sisco, come forward, raise your right hand, sir, be ready to be sworn.
You solemnly swear or affirm that testimony you're about to give will be the complete truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
All right, sir, if you could please have a seat in the witness stand as the deputy instructs you. Okay, you may proceed.
All right, thank you, Your Honor.
You may proceed, Mr. Stone.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning. How are you?
Good.
Please tell us your name.
Chris Sisco.
And for the record, would you please spell your first name and also your last name?
ChrisSisco.
What do you do for an occupation, Mr. Sisco?
I'm a certified registered nurse anesthetist.
And may seem somewhat obvious, but tell us, what does a nurse anesthetist do?
So a nurse anesthetist, we provide anesthesia for patients that are undergoing surgery or procedures in the hospital. I work at the Orlando Level 1 Trauma Center, so we work in a team with other CRNAs and anesthesiologists to provide anesthesia.
And where do you specifically work, at ORMC?
Yeah, the ORMC, the Level 1 Trauma Center in downtown Orlando.
Okay. And how long have you been doing this and working there?
So I completed my schooling there. So if you count the schooling of January 2015 till now, I've been there about 3.5 years.
Okay. And tell us where you live. And I'm not asking for a street address, but if you prefer a city, town, county, that's fine.
Southwest Orlando, Florida.
Now, Mr. Sisco, did you know a person by the name of Cody Amato during his lifetime?
Yes, sir, I did.
And tell the jury, please, how did you know of Cody Amato and how long? Just kind of give us a sense of who he was to you, your relationship to him.
Sure. So the first time I met Cody Amato was in the spring of 2014, we were both applying for the same anesthesia program. And what that was is we met down in Miami, and we were interviewed for going to school. So I met him that day. It's kind of like you all meet in a classroom together. You meet each other, potential prospects. You get interviewed, and then you leave. And then later on in the year, you find out if you got accepted. And then, so I just met him that one day. And then we both, come to find out, got accepted. And in January of 2015 is when we started our program together at the Orlando campus. So we started school together, and that consists of you go to class a couple of times a week, and then you have clinical after that. So you spend a good, they say anywhere from 40 to 60 hours a week between school and clinical time. So between January 2015 and the early summer of 2017, we completed that 28-month program together. And so I would see him in class and both at clinical throughout the week for those 28 months.
And how long had Cody been working at Orlando Regional Medical Center as an anesthetist?
Yeah, so the same time frame as I. We both started the program together, did clinicals, schooling together. We both, early on in our program, still in school, decided we wanted to work at ORMC when we completed our schooling. So then we both signed on, and as soon as we graduated in May of 2017, we signed on and started working together. So for the January.
So coworker, you're a coworker of Cody?
Yes, sir.
And would you consider yourself a friend of Cody also?
I would, yeah. So in the program, we joked around that we would see each other more than we saw our families, just because we spent so much time together. But after we would study together or, see each other in class, see each other at clinical. And then as of late, I'd say over the last, maybe since we started actually working together, graduated and working, he would spend more time with my family, come over and have dinner or whatever, meet my wife, meet my kids. So yeah, within the last year, I'd say he was probably my closest friend at work, I would say.
Now, let me ask you about Grant Amato. Do you know a person by the name of Grant Amato?
Yes, sir, I do.
And tell the jury, kind of like ask the same question that I asked about Cody. Tell the jury how do you know Grant Amato?
So I would say almost the same exact story as meeting Cody. We met the first day. They had applied and wanted to go to school together. So again, I met Grant that same day, like March 2014, when we were interviewing, but it was just a brief hi. And then in January of 2015 is when we all started the program together. Again, I would see him at school a couple days a week, and then see him periodically throughout our clinical time outside of the class. But around the spring of 2016, I didn't have any more contact with him after
With
that.
him meaning?
Grant.
Okay.
Yeah, no
And
more contact.
And let
with
me
Grant.
ask you this, do you see, and if you need to stand up to look around the courtroom, do you see Grant Amato in the courtroom today?
Yeah, I see him over there.
And would you please identify him?
Why not?
Is he the person sitting at
He's
the
the-
back counsel table in the chair that's closest to the wall?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please let the record reflect that Mr. Sisco is the defendant, identify the defendant in this case.
One.
Now, would it be fair to say that you are much closer with Cody than you were with Grant Amato?
Yeah, that would be a fair statement. Definitely talked to Cody more, spent more time with Cody, in clinical and in class, talking to him. And then especially since me and Cody grew closer after we both graduated, that's when I spent more time with Cody. I was closer to him, but with Grant, not really a friendship, I would say. Just more like a working colleague,
Okay. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions concerning Cody's work habits. And once again, can you remind us, how long had you and Cody actually worked together at Orlando Regional Medical Center?
So again, from 2015 is when we first started the program. It's a program that takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, a lot of dedication. And so again, January 2015 until when he passed away in January 2019. I had worked with him, spent a lot of time with him at work. Again, we joked around about seeing each other more than we saw our family.
Tell the jury about Cody's work habits with regard to showing up for work, coming to work, punctual.
Sure.
I mean, tell us about that.
So I'm sure we'll talk about this later, but one of the reasons why I had called in the wellness check was because from what I can recall, I never could recall a time when Cody would show up late to class, when he would not show up to class, when he would not come on time or not show up to clinical. I never heard of an instance where he, just did not show up for any reason. Extremely dedicated, knowledgeable. He worked hard at being the CRNA that he was.
What about coming to work on time?
When we graduated and we started working as CRNAs at ORMC, it is our, when you work a day shift and you know your schedule ahead of time, you are scheduled to show up at least at the latest 7 o'clock. But you can show up earlier if you'd like. And so you can clock in at 6:45. And that's when you can start getting paid, but you're not considered late until you show up after 7. Cody and I and a couple others, we would show up even earlier than that, 6:15, 6:20. We would clock in, knowing that we weren't going to get paid, but we would, come and get our rooms ready, go see our patients in pre-op, see them ahead of time, talk about the care plan with our anesthesiologist. So I would say that Cody was, again, never late, not even punctual. I would say he's always early. And so, again, never saw him show up late at all.
Okay. Now, let me direct your attention to January 24th, 2019, Thursday, January 24th, 2019. And just ask you about that day. First of all, did you work that day?
Yes, sir.
And do you remember what your shift was that day? How many hours that you were supposed to put in that day?
So on that Thursday, I was scheduled a 16-hour shift, which is, again, you show up at 7, 6:45, 7. Then you have a 12-hour shift until 7 p.m. And then if needed, you stay an additional 4 hours until 11 p.m. if there are emergencies and such. So Orlando is a big city, a level 1 trauma center. It's not uncommon that for your 16-hour shift, you're there for the whole 16 hours. So from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. would have been my shift for that day.
And do you recall, I'm going to ask you about Cody in a couple of seconds, of course, but do you recall what time did you arrive to work that day? About
6:20 to 6:25 is when I clocked in that day.
Did Cody come into work that day?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall, once again, about what time Cody arrived at work that day?
After I clock in, I always look at the board, and then I see where my room is, and I go straight to pre-op. And then when I got to pre-op, he was already there seeing his patient and, prepping his patient for surgery.
So he was early and on time?
Yes, sir.
Now, just very briefly, I want to kind of fast forward up to the evening, but just so the jury has a sense of continuity, just generally describe that day, your work day, and what Cody was doing also.
Right. So, again, our days are normally filled. They're very busy. But I do remember that that afternoon, it had kind of slowed down a little bit. And So what happens is there's 4 of us that are scheduled that 16-hour shift. And again, for some reason, if it slows down in the afternoon, what we'll do is either we have to stay there on call even though there's no cases going on, or if there's even sometimes no cases going on, sometimes the head anesthesiologist that's running the board for the day, who's in control of the board and of when we get to go and come, they will first ask us if there's any volunteers, if anybody wants to leave early. Well, that day I remember that none of us wanted to leave early. So instead of any volunteers, what will happen is we'll put all of our names in a hat and draw names out of a hat. And Cody's name came up first, and he was going to leave at like 9:30 that afternoon. And then since my name
That
was,
evening, afternoon or evening? You said afternoon.
yeah, 9:30 p.m.
Okay, go ahead,
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Yep, 9:30 p.m. is when he was going to leave because we didn't need him. And then I would stay until 11 to cover until the night guy came in to cover the night shift.
So drawing names out of a hat was, the purpose of that was really designed to see who has to go early?
Correct, yeah, because the hospital can't just pay, and then, all 4 of us to be there if we're not doing anything. So they
Get
send-
paid very well if you stay later?
Oh, yeah, so that's, that'll be another reason why none of us wanted to leave early. So if you follow me, their first 12 hours is regular pay, and then whether or not that week is in overtime or not, you automatically get bumped into overtime, and you get paid double time for the last 4 hours. So if you think about it, you work 12, then if you just stay for another 4, you get paid for an additional day of being there. So that's why initially none of us wanted to leave, because you're already there. You might as well just make the money while you're there. A lot of people, some people like to volunteer to leave, and then a lot of us don't like to volunteer to leave. So then that's where you go with the drawing the names out of a hat, and somebody has to leave.
Okay. So Cody drew a time where he had to leave early.
Yes, sir, about
What-
9:30 is the time. So he drew his name out of a hat, he was first, and then the head anesthesiologist just picked the time. And Cody will leave at 9:30, somebody will leave after that, and then Chris, you're the last, you'll leave at 11 p.m. when the night guy comes in. So yeah,
Okay.
Cody was supposed to leave at 9:30 p.m.
So 9:30 was the time for Cody.
Correct.
Let me ask you, did there come a time when Cody did leave and it was earlier than 9:30?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about that.
And so if nothing is going on, typically what happens is whoever the anesthesiologist is and the CRNAs that are there, we will kind of congregate in this anesthesia office that's right by the OR desk. We call it the bubble room because there's a big mirror or a big window right there that you can see in. But we kind of hang out there because at any one time during the day, you can get a stat call, which means that a patient is coming up within 5 minutes and you have to be there and available. So that's where we all kind of were, just hanging out in there. And Cody was talking to us about, and then he ended up leaving that room and going, and he was like on his phone or something. And then I decided, well, since he left and we weren't really talking a whole lot, I went to go take a quick lunch break. So I was taking a lunch break, and I was just sitting there watching TV or something, and Cody popped his head in the break room at about 9:10, 9:15, and he said, hey.
Can we approach, Your Honor? Okay, you can answer the question then. What did Cody say to you?
He said that he had talked to the anesthesia doc and said, I'm going to leave a little earlier, but I'll see you in the morning, and we'll have coffee after we see our patients.
So he left,
Yes, sir, he left early.
and this is approximately when now, please?
About 9:15.
And let me ask you, even that 15 minutes of when he was supposed to leave versus when he actually left, did that seem a little bit unusual to you?
Yeah, that
Why?
might, so that might not sound unusual to somebody who doesn't have our position, but when you're making double time and you leave 15 minutes early, that's quite a bit of money that you're just leaving on the table for no reason. He wasn't told to leave early, and, you know, we all have jobs, we like to make money, so I just thought it was weird. I'd never seen Cody leave early and leaving money on the table like that, just to dip out early.
I'm showing counsel State's Exhibit A for identification. May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit A for identification. I know that you've seen this photograph before. Do you recognize that photograph?
Yes, sir, I do.
And please tell the jury, who's the person that's depicted in the photograph?
That would be my friend Cody Amato.
Okay, and do you recognize what he's wearing?
He's wearing the scrubs that he left in. He's wearing the badge that we use to get in and out of the hospital. And his watch, his big watch that he always used to wear at the hospital as well.
Okay, that's the way that he appeared? He was dressed like that when he left you at 9:15 in the evening on January 24th?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd offer this in evidence as a State's Exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
None.
It's been pre-marked for identification as exhibit number, what's the exhibit number? A will be moved into evidence as State's Exhibit number 1.
I think you can, yeah, do you have the, well, you have the screen in front of you. Is it up on the screen there?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you, and I think if you touch it, something will come up on the image here. Yes? No?
Touch the screen?
Yeah, see what happens. No?
No. I have a laser pointer.
You have the laser pointer?
Yeah.
Yeah, then why don't you show us, first of all, that's how Cody was dressed when he left work?
Yeah, so he always wore, we always have to wear these green scrubs. No matter, when we're in the operating room, you have to wear it. And he always wore the long sleeves because he was always cold. This would be his badge right here that we used to get in and out of the hospital, in and out of lounges, in and out of everything. And then he always had this watch on as well that he would have left with right there.
Okay.
Is there a mouse right there?
There is a mouse, yes.
Use that mouse, and that's what we work on.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, did you eventually leave work that evening? And once again, I'm referring to the evening of Thursday, January 24th.
Yeah,
About what time did you leave?
about 11:10 is when I clocked out.
Now, did you go to work the next morning?
Yes, I did.
Approximately what time did you arrive?
I believe I looked at my timesheet, I clocked in at 6:19.
And Cody, what time was Cody scheduled to come in?
So again, scheduled to be there no later than 7. You can clock in earlier. So I would have expected him to be there before me.
And was he?
No.
And did Cody come in at all that morning?
No.
And did that concern you?
Yes, it did.
Tell the jury about that. When did you first start to get concerned?
So when I first got in, I had clocked in at where we clock in at, and you walk right by that, and there's the surgery OR board where you can see where your case assignment is for the day. I had ran into a colleague of ours that typically works overnight, and she had said, Cody's not here. I haven't seen him yet. He's not in pre-op. Have you heard from him? And of course I was like, no, I just got here. I haven't heard from him yet. And so I went about, the next couple minutes. I went to pre-op just to see for myself, to see if he was there, and he wasn't there. So I looked at whatever room he was supposed to be in, and he wasn't in there. So then I ran into the colleague again, and she had expressed like a little bit more concern this time. And so I said, well, why don't I just try to call him or text him? So I tried to text him. And I know that when Cody has an iPhone like I do, and I know that when you have the iMessage, that when you send a text message, typically it goes through in blue, which means that the phone received the text message. And so when I text him, hey, where are you? It went through just green, like the phone didn't receive the text message, like it's either out of service or it's dead.
Had that ever happened before?
No, sir. Cody always had his phone on. He always had a charger on him. He always had it clipped to him. If I ever, throughout the day, if I had a question about anything, I knew that if I shot Cody a text, he would text me right back with, advice or whatever. So then when it went through green, it was concerning. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just try to give him a buzz. So I tried to call the phone, and it went, rang a couple times and went straight to voicemail. So I did that a couple times. And then
Unsuccessful? Weren't able to get through to Cody?
never, no. It always went straight to voicemail, or the text went green. So then I had kind of, we have a friend that we went to school with. He now lives in New York. I kind of texted him and I said, hey, have you heard from Cody, like overnight at all? He said, no, why? I said, he's not here at work. He said, well, did you try to call him? I said, yeah, of course I tried to call him. And then I had talked to a couple other colleagues about him not showing up, and everybody's response was, I can't believe he's not here. This is so out of ordinary. Why would he not show up? Even if he didn't show up, he always had his phone on him. He should have answered, called back, something.
So at some point, did your concerns rise to the level where you thought, now I better call the
Yeah, we
police?
got to do something because my friend's not here and he's supposed to be here. So we bounced around the idea of like what we should do if somebody should try to go to his house or whatever, or if somebody should try to call a wellness check. Well, none of us had ever called a wellness check before. So I just started Googling like how to do one, and I tried to type in like Chuliota Police Department, and apparently there isn't one. So I called Oviedo Police Department, and I called in and I got some, maybe a dispatcher or somebody, and I had said, hey, my friend's not at work. I'd just like to call in like an official wellness check to see where he's at. And they had asked me a couple things about him, and I expressed my concern, and they said, well, we'll send somebody over to the house, and we'll keep you informed. I gave him my number and all that stuff. So maybe, I don't know how much time went by, but some time went by, and I got a phone call back from the police officer that had received the wellness check concern. So he said he was at the house.
Okay, I'm
State at this point.
sorry?
It's a state at this point.
Yes. So at some point, you did call the police, and then an officer who actually arrived at the scene gave you a call back?
Yeah, he called me back.
Okay. And at that point, did you, without getting into what was said, the substance of the conversation, did you and the officer discuss your concerns?
Correct, yes, we did. I just told him the same thing I told the court, that, this is extremely out of the ordinary. This is very concerning for us at work. and, expressed our concern.
Okay. Thank you very much. I have no further questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Sisco. Now, you testified earlier that when you were looking at the photograph, you said those were the scrubs he left in. That's what you stated, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, they wouldn't be different than the ones he would wear the next day, correct? They would look exactly the same?
They're green scrubs.
Correct. So he wore the same thing almost exactly every day to work, correct?
We're all required to.
Okay. And when Mr. Amato said he had to leave, he didn't appear flustered or panicked, right?
Nope.
Didn't raise any alarm to you, correct?
Oh, I'm sorry. No. No, he didn't.
And you can't be certain that those are the exact same scrubs he left in because he wears the same thing every day, correct?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat it one more time?
He wears the same thing to work every day, isn't that right?
Correct.
And because he would wear the same thing the next day, you're unaware whether those were the exact same scrubs that he wore when he left because nothing distinguishes them, correct?
If from one day to the other, you're asking me, are those the same scrubs? I wouldn't be able to know if they was the same exact scrubs from one day to another.
That's exactly what I'm asking. You said you would not be able to tell, correct?
No.
Thank you, Judge.
Can you reiterate?
Mr. Sisco, is that how he was dressed? The way that he was dressed in the photograph, was that how he was dressed when he left you at 9:15 in the evening on January 24th?
When Cody left the hospital, he was wearing green scrub pants, green scrub top, green scrub long sleeve shirt with a badge and a watch.
Exactly how he appears in that photograph?
Exactly how he appears in the photograph.
State's Exhibit 1. Thank you.
Members of the jury, do you have any questions of this witness? And everyone's shaking their head no. May this witness be excused and released?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Sisco. You're excused and you're released. You may step down. State's next witness. State's next witness.
Oh, I'm sorry, Your Honor. Deputy Todd Moderson.
Deputy Moderson. Please raise your right hand, sir. Be ready to be sworn.
Please tell me where affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the complete truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you.
Please have a seat, sir. The witness stand as the deputy instructs you. You may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please tell us your name.
My name is Todd Moderson.
Would you please spell your first and last name?
First name Todd, last name Moderson.
Somewhat obvious, but let me ask what you do for an occupation.
I'm a deputy sheriff with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office?
About 20 years, a little over.
And what are your present duties with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office?
Assigned to road patrol.
Do you have any previous experience as a law enforcement officer?
I do. I have almost 5 years with the Lake Mary Police Department and about 2 years in Wisconsin.
Now, let me direct your attention to the morning, approximately 9 o'clock in the morning on Friday, January 25th. First, let me ask, what were your duties back then, in January of 2019?
My duties that day were to patrol, assigned to patrol, and I was patrolling the Chuliota area.
So you're pretty much the same now, road patrol?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, that morning, did you have an occasion to respond to 2112 Sultan Circle in Chuliota?
I did.
And this may seem like a silly question, but I'm going to ask it. That's in Seminole County, Florida.
It is in Seminole County, Florida.
Now, where Can you give the jury some sense of where that is, Sultan Circle? I don't know if you can use some major roads or thoroughfares or some kind of common
Certainly.
landmark. Where is that located in Seminole County?
Generally, it's in the northeast part of Seminole County in the area of Fort Christmas Road and Lake Mills Road in the Picket Down subdivision, and that's sort of in the outskirts of Oviedo.
Now, tell the jury, please, why did you respond to 2112 Sultan Circle?
I was dispatched to a call regarding a well-being check.
Now, at some point, let me ask you, you went to that location, correct?
That is correct.
Excuse me, at some point, did you make physical entry into that house? I'm going to ask you a couple of questions regarding what you did before that, but just to establish that basic fact, at some point, did you make physical entry into that house?
I did.
Now, before actually entering the house, tell the jury what you did in order to try to make contact with anyone who may have been in the house.
Prior to entering the house?
Yes.
So some of the things that I did to try to see if anybody would respond, come to the door or whatnot, answer a phone. I knocked on the door, of course, front and back doors. I knocked on windows, pounded on, actually physically pounded on the windows, called out the name of the person I was trying to locate, which was Cody Amato. I tried calling his cell phone, his brother's Grant's cell phone, his mom's cell phone, his dad's cell phone, and got no response from anybody. Also, I hit the air horn on my assigned police vehicle, which is an F-150, which if you ever heard an air horn or a siren, you kind of can imagine how loud that would be sitting in front of a home. That would be the best way to try to get somebody's attention, to let them know the police are there trying to contact them beyond knocking on doors if they're in a shower or sleeping or something like that.
And no response?
No response.
Now, let me ask you this. As you told us that you went around the house knocking on doors and windows?
That's right.
While you did that, did you notice any type of forced entry? What I'm referring to is either a broken window frame, broken door frame, pry marks on windows, doors. Did you notice anything that would indicate or suggest a forced entry into the home?
There was nothing that would indicate that.
Now, at some point, did you go to the front porch of the residence and see if you could try to find some type of hidden key?
I did.
And tell the jury about that.
So a lot of people will leave a hidden key around their home somewhere, a lot of times around their front door somewhere. So I checked there for a hidden key to try to gain access to the home without causing damage to a door, such as kicking in a door, breaking a window, something like that.
And were you successful? Any hidden key?
There was none that I could find.
Now, also at some point during your time at the house, and I'm not going to ask you for the substance of any conversation you had, but did you speak with a coworker of Cody that was concerned?
I did.
Okay. Now, after going through this process that you described to the jury, did there come a point where you requested permission from a supervisor to actually force entry into the home?
I did.
Tell the jury about that.
So the concern rose to the level where I felt like we needed to gain access to the home to check on the well-being of Cody. And so I contacted the supervisor, explained all the details of what my concern were, the totality of the circumstances, if you will, and requested to enter the home.
And were you given permission to do that?
The first request was denied as far as the forced entry. She wanted to do a little more due diligence before we damage somebody's property.
And then after you did what you needed to do, were you granted permission to force entry into the home?
Once I found an access point where we didn't have to create damage, she said to go ahead in.
Now, at some point, before actually entering the house, did you wait for another backup deputy?
I did.
Tell the jury about that.
Okay. Once I received permission to go into the home, the sergeant said to wait to call for another unit to assist me for officer safety reasons. So I did that. I requested a backup unit, and Deputy Brent Matre responded to assist me.
Now, once Deputy Matre responded to the house, at that point, did you and him enter the house?
We did.
Tell the jury about that, how you actually made entry into the house.
So based on my 28 years of law enforcement experience, you sort of learn little tricks that you can do to try to access homes. And one of the things that I know that is if a deadbolt isn't fully engaged, that you can sometimes use an instrument such as a knife to try to slide that deadbolt back. I tried it on the front, it didn't work, it was fully engaged. I tried it on the back door. As you're facing the home, it would be the back right of the home. And there was a back door that I was able to slide the deadbolt using my knife over, creating an access point to the home.
Now, let me ask you, which way did that particular door, which way did it open? Did it open into the house or out from the house?
It opened away or out from the home, not into
Okay.
the home, yes.
And in the immediate space, in the threshold, the immediate space of that door, was there anything?
There was. So when I opened up the door, all I could see is the back of some sort of a case. I didn't know at the time why it was there, if it was there to try to block entry, or what the purpose was. There was just a case there. So I waited, left everything as is until my backup unit arrived before we went any further.
Could you have made entry without moving that case?
I could not.
So at some point, did your backup, Deputy Brent Matre, arrive?
He did.
And at that point, did you and Deputy Matre enter the house?
We did. We entered the home.
And through the entry point that you had just described, the door that you were able to open with the case?
That's correct.
And did you have to move that case aside to get in?
I did. It was a large case. I was able to move it over to the right to allow us space to get past it.
Now, I'm going to, of course, ask you some follow-up questions, but let me just start by asking you the general question. Once inside that house, did you discover 3 dead bodies?
Unfortunately, yes, we did.
Tell the jury where the bodies were located. I'm going to get to your body cam in a minute, but tell the juries just generally where the bodies were located.
So the first one that we came to was in a kitchen area. The second one was in what I'll describe to be sort of a storage / workout room off of the garage. And the last one was in what I'll describe to be a sort of set up as an office area, home office area with a desk.
Now, initially, did you believe the body that was found in the kitchen area to be that of Grant Amato?
That was one theory. We didn't know for sure, but that was one theory, yes.
But at some point later on, did you discover that in fact it was not Grant Amato's body, but it was Chad Amato?
That's correct.
Now also, let me, before we get to the body cam, part of the process of your entry and movements throughout the house was part of that process called clearing the house.
That's right.
And it may seem somewhat evident or obvious, but tell the jury, what does clearing the house mean?
So clearing the house, we're there, of course, on a well-being check. So our primary focus is on the preservation of life. And also, for our safety and anybody else coming in there later is searching for any kind of threat to us or anybody else, or, you know, the person that might have committed, you know, this crime.
And what did you do to clear the house? What,
Do sort of a methodical search of the home, room to room, opening doors, things like that, looking under things, any kind of, any hiding spot, trying to identify that.
any place where a person may be located or hiding?
That's right.
And what was the result of clearing the house that the only 3 people in that house were the dead people that you discovered, nobody else?
That's correct.
Now, during this process of entering the house, discovering the bodies, clearing the house, were you wearing your body cam?
I was.
And was the body cam on and recording your movements throughout the house, including discovering the bodies and clearing the house?
It was.
May I approach the witness, Your Honor? Let me show you what's been marked for identification of State's Exhibit B. Ask you to look at it. Recognize it?
I do.
And what is it about that allows you to recognize it?
It's got my name on the top, and it's got a date with my initials on it.
And tell the jury what that particular disc is.
This is a copy of my body camera as indicated at the top, Moderson body cam.
And you've watched this before?
I have.
Is that a true and accurate recording of your movements within 2112 Sultan Place, including your discovery of the bodies, as well, including your entry, discovery of the bodies, and clearing the house?
That's correct.
Okay, I'd offer this into evidence as a State's Exhibit, Your Honor. No objection, Your Honor.
All right, with the remark for ID, State's Exhibit B will be moved in evidence, and State's Exhibit 2 in evidence. Publish.
Yes, may I please publish it, Your Honor?
All right, members of the jury, you're about to view and listen to a video recording. The court instructs you that the recording has been edited to eliminate irrelevant portions that would not add to your understanding of the case. The fact that the recording has been edited should not concern you in any way and must not impact the way you view and listen to and consider this evidence.
Okay, I'm going to jury, and there may be occasions where, maybe not, but there may be occasions where I stop it, or my co-counsel will stop it, and just ask you to explain what you're doing and what's happening at that point, okay?
Sure.
But for now, let's just start playing the video. Now, who's that?
That is Deputy Brent Matre.
Okay, go ahead.
My backup.
Is this the door that you were talking about? We were able to open it up, and is that the case?
That is correct.
Sheriff's office. I'm gonna figure this thing out right here. Where?
It's the process of clearing the house?
That's right.
Sheriff's office. Hold on. Here as well, everything okay?
What are you doing right now?
So trying to find check on the well-being of, at this point, a missing person.
Right.
So there was a cell phone in the master bedroom, and the witness told me that he was very into his electronics and his cell phone and constantly communicating, and the fact that there was a phone sitting there, nobody's answering the door, told me he may be there somewhere if that's his phone.
Okay, so looking at that phone was part of your process. It may have helped you provide some information regarding what may have happened or what was going on in that house?
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Sheriff's office. Police. Police.
Okay, now can we stop it? Now you heard Deputy Matre?
That's right.
What was he saying to you?
He said, contact, contact, contact.
Which meant what?
He sees somebody.
Okay, go ahead.
3513, start rescue. Hold on a minute, stand by. Please. Signal 32, or correction, just nail down, lip signal 7. Go ahead, 7.
What may be obvious, but what's signal 7 mean?
I'm sorry.
Did you say signal 7?
Yeah, I actually said two codes. One of them signal 32, which is a self-inflicted gunshot wound, and then I corrected that to just a mail down because I really didn't know what I had. And signal 7 is a possible dead person.
Okay, so the signal 7 is you believe he was dead?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But I don't know who this is. That's the brother, that's the signal 40 months. Okay.
You heard Deputy Matre say something at that point?
He did. He set another one down.
Discovered another body?
That's right.
Okay.
3513, we got 2 down. This is Cody. Yeah, we're gonna need somebody over at White House to clear. Yeah. What's that? Yeah. Two down, two looks like single sevens. Should we even bother with the FD? Incompatible with life?
What, can I ask, what did you say there?
If we should bother with having the fire department respond if the injuries are incompatible with life.
In other words, if it's obvious that they're dead?
That's right,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
At this point, you've not discovered Margaret?
That's right, not yet.
There's a in here too. We're just gonna go in with make sure the stages until we get able to clear this room. Did you, what about, what's that? No. That door goes into the other room, I believe. Okay. Yeah. I'm gonna check this. That's a bar. Police! Little one down.
Okay, now, did you hear Deputy Matre make a remark?
He set another one down.
So a third person that you found now?
That's right,
That was Margaret?
that's right.
3, 5, 13, we got 3 down. You want to go first? You want me to go first? You go. Okay, I'm gonna cover to the left first. Cover. Come on. You cover here, I'm gonna break right. Over here? Yeah, it's cover, kind of cover this area, and break and go right. Police! 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 Got one more closet to check. Come on. Police! Claire, come up. Okay, come in here. Yeah, check. Open up. Hey, I'll check those. I'll cover this. Police! Closet. Hold on. Let's, I think we need to clear that garage a little bit. I cleared that one in there. Real good, because Dad's not here. So. I wonder if we should just hit that garage door button. So we can clear it good. I'm just gonna take a peek this way a little bit more. Make sure I miss the door. Okay, good here. Jennifer. Just to make sure I know what's going on.
That's Margaret there?
Yes.
She's shot in the face. Well, you got the dog too, looks like. Are you serious? What's that? Right there, I don't know, that's just a... Let me, what's the spot that you're on, like you said? Yeah. Yeah, neighbors can't see. I didn't see anybody was different. I checked that one already. Dad's ID's in here? Well, Dad's ID is in here. I hope we're not missing something, missing the room or something. There's a shed right here, you want to take a shed? Yeah. Let me get these vehicles on the screen. 3513, copy 3 tags for the screen. 2 tags for the screen. What's that? Yankee 44 Zulu Sierra Victor, Golf Uniform Lima, Foxtrot 16. Just in case somebody takes off on us or something, you know.
I'm sorry, Golf Uniform Lima Foxtrot?
Foxtrot 16. Okay. No, I haven't.
Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you some questions about Deputy Matre's body cam, but first, let me ask, at some point, was the entire property cleared?
Yes.
Okay, and no one other than law enforcement or the 3 victims in the house was on that property?
Correct.
Showing Mr. Dowdy, State's Exhibit T for identification. May I approach you, the witness? Let me show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit C for identification. Ask you if you recognize it?
I do.
And what is it about that that allows you to recognize it?
It's marked Matre body cam. It's got the date July 9th, 2019, and my initials, the date that I reviewed the CD, DVD.
Okay. So you watched the CD, the video on that CD?
I did.
And is it a true and accurate recording of the part where Cody's body was discovered?
That's right.
Okay, I don't know if this evidence and State's Exhibit, Your Honor.
Any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, it's been pre-marked as State's Exhibit C for identification, will be moved into evidence, State's Exhibit 3 in evidence.
And may I play it for the jury? It's a very short video. Trying to stop it when the door was sealed, when the door was closed.
No, down. We got 2 down. This is Cody.
Now, this is Deputy Matre's body cam.
That's right.
Do you see in the background there that door?
That's right.
And is that the door, the threshold where Cody's body was discovered?
It is.
At the time that you and Deputy Matre discovered Cody's body, was that door shut?
That door was closed.
You just opened it?
He did just open it, yes.
Yeah, we need more people.
And one final question. Can you give us a sense of how much property that particular lot covered? Not an exact acreage or square footage, but can you give us some sense of how big that plot of land is?
Sure. It's sort of a square type shape, and you might say it's around 300 feet long and then square, if that makes sense.
It's a nice sized property. It's pretty big.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Good afternoon, Deputy.
Sir,
How long have you been with Seminole County?
a little over 20 years.
Okay. And how long have you been on road patrol in the Chiliota area?
Off and on for a good part of my time with the Seminole County Sheriff's Office.
Okay. So you're pretty familiar with that area,
Yes, sir.
fair to say. And you're from Wisconsin?
That's right.
Would you consider Chiliota kind of like a rural area of Seminole County?
I would.
Okay. Now, you got there about 10:25 in the morning?
I would have to refer to the event screen to confirm
Okay, well, I
that.
was just noticing on the body cam. The body cam would be accurate, wouldn't it, the time?
I would assume so.
Okay. And while we're watching the body cam, we see you're the one with the gun, correct?
On the first,
Well, yeah, on the first body cam.
that's right.
Yes, sir. And it appears that, and we can see your gun in there, it appears that you have long sleeves on?
I don't remember if I was wearing long sleeves or a jacket. Based on the time of year, I could have had long sleeves on.
Had a
I don't
jacket?
recall for sure, but
If you saw just a snip of it again in the beginning, would you know
yes.
right away?
Yes.
Were you putting it in the side? Yeah, if you don't mind. I don't want to mess up your computer. If you could move that too. Sure. Thanks. Stop it, stop it. As soon as you see his hands, you can stop it.
Quick butt out there. We gotta go around back this way.
Okay.
Oh, we're blowing the horn and everything, so. knocked on every window, every door, hit the air horn. Sheriff's office.
There you go. That be good? Would that refresh your recollection, sir?
I can't. It looks like it might be a jacket.
Might be a jacket you're wearing?
It could be.
Okay. Would it be fair to say it might have been a little brisk that morning if you're wearing a jacket?
It'd be fair to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I noticed when you're going in there, that's the case that you were talking about, P55?
That's right.
Okay, did you ever open that up?
Open on
That
the other.
P55 case?
Open the door,
No,
doors
not-
to the
not-
case, or
Yeah, the case that you're moving with your hand on right now.
I did not.
Okay. I noticed before you went in there, though, there was foil on the door. Looked like there was foil on the glass.
I believe that's right.
Okay. Now, it looks like when you were going around, the garage door was initially closed.
That's right.
Okay. And you had to open it with a click of the button, the garage door opener?
The one mounted on the wall.
Or
That's
some-
correct.
Yeah, okay. So there was a garage door opener, an automatic garage door opener.
That's right.
Did you happen to notice the keypad on the outside?
I did actually, yes.
Did? Okay. Now, when you're going in around the outside of the house, it doesn't appear there's no porch lights on or anything of that nature?
It was the daytime, so I don't recall whether I noticed any, not that I recall.
Not that you recall. That's fine. Thank you. Were there cars outside the house?
There was one.
There was one. Did you by chance feel the engine on it to see if it was warm? It recently been operating?
I believe I did, and but I can't testify, recall enough to testify to it.
Okay. And so you're familiar with the area. It's 10:30. I don't know. Was there any dew on the windows that morning, on that particular car windows, if you remember?
On the car windows, I didn't notice any dew that I recall. I was able to see pretty clearly into the car.
Okay. And you checked the front porch. There was no hidden keys or anything like that that you could find?
That's correct.
And the front door, there was no forced entry?
That's correct.
Okay. You went to the back, and I appreciate you said a 28 years tricks. You found a deadbolt, what we're seeing right now, and you were able to jimmy it?
That's right.
That probably didn't cause little, if any, damage, right?
Correct. No damage.
Okay. When you're moving that case right there, was that pretty heavy?
It was pretty heavy, but I believe that was like a tile floor or something similar to it, so it was able to move fairly easily.
Good, good. Okay, now when you initially entered that put you into the master bedroom or the master bathroom?
Master bathroom.
Master bathroom. Do you recall, Deputy, if the lights were on in the master bathroom?
I don't recall.
Okay. Now, as you said, your initial goal is the preservation of life, to make
That's
sure
right.
the well-being of Mr. Cody. Or Cody Amato, was it your understanding that Cody was the owner of the home or that he just lived there?
He lived there.
Okay. Were you provided with information of all the occupants that would live at that home? If you would know.
I had a general idea who resided in the home, yes.
Okay. Now, you said you noticed a cell phone in the master bedroom,
That's right.
correct? Okay. And according to, based upon your information from Cody's friends, that he was, I don't want to say tech savvy, but he was always connected with the cell phone and everything?
That's right.
You didn't have any reason to believe, though, did you, that the phone on that bed was actually Cody's?
I've never been to that home before, sir.
Okay, because you didn't know if Cody resided in the master bedroom, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You did know, though, that Cody's parents resided at that residence? Or
That, yeah, from what Mr. Sisco told me, he believed that the parents may have been out of town.
Okay. Now, it seems that when you're going methodically through the house, that it's silent. That there's no radios on, no music,
Correct.
no television on?
Correct.
Do you remember? Okay. It seems like it was deafening silent. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, there was
I don't want
no,
to say deafening, but,
no noises that other than our police radio.
Okay. I noticed when you're going through the kitchen area where you discover, who you thought was, I think you thought it was Grant in the beginning, but it actually was Chad, the dad.
Yeah, that was based on Deputy Matre's comment.
Right. I mean, nevertheless, there was a dead male.
Yeah, correct.
The lights were off in the kitchen, it appeared? I didn't hear anything on?
To be honest with you, that scene, when you walking into something like that, it's so hectic, you're not really paying attention to lights on or lights off.
I understand. And obviously, the body cam speaks for itself.
Correct.
So if we're looking at it and the lights don't appear on,
Okay.
they're off. Now, observing the person lying down in the kitchen, it seemed to be a pretty bloody mess.
It was.
It was. I noticed that his right hand seemed to be covered in blood, and there was a lot of blood surrounding him.
There was a lot of blood surrounding him, yes.
Okay. Going into the gym, I noticed that the ceiling fan wasn't on, and it didn't appear that there were any lights on in there either, or no sound.
If you'd like to play that back, I could testify to that, but
Sure.
again, I didn't pay attention to details necessarily. That's for crime scene later on.
Am I allowed to fast forward? Now, right here, we're looking at the master bathroom.
I'm sorry?
The master bathroom here. You
That's
just
where
left.
we're at right there, yes, sir.
Appears that light's off.
Correct.
Sheriff's office.
Once again, we see the gym equipment that appears lights off in there too.
This is Grant's phone.
Yes.
This is the phone that you found in the master bedroom?
That's right.
here?
Sheriff's office. Police. Police.
Again, the lights are off right here too.
That's correct.
Now, you don't go there, but beyond that window, that's where the mother was found, correct?
Yes, that's right.
3513, current rescue. We'll let him in, stand by.
Okay, now we're going into the kitchen.
Yes, sir.
This is the body, this is the right hand that I'm talking about right there?
Yes,
That appears to be bloody?
that's right.
Okay,
Correction.
that's good, thank you.
Nail down,
I can stop it now.
lip say, what's up?
Okay, thank you, sir. Yeah, I'm all done. And the mom, Margaret, she was the last one that was found? of the
That's
two?
right.
Okay. While you were upstairs, did you notice anything of evidentiary value, and specifically any blood, any bloody footprints or anything like that?
Not that I specifically noticed, but my focus was on, preservation of life and safety.
In safety, and also, and that's why you're clearing that house, and specifically, that's why you go into the garage, you even checked the attic of the garage, correct?
I did not.
You did not, did someone though?
I wasn't there. I can't testify to that.
Okay. And you went through the closets and just to make sure that that house is cleared?
That's right.
Okay. Now, you wrote a report in this case, right?
Yes, I
Did
did
you write
write
a
a report.
report?
Yes.
You have it with you?
I do in the witness room. I just
Okay.
didn't bring it with me. I'm sorry.
Can I approach you, Your Honor? That's just this. Well, first of all, let me ask you, sir, I need this for refreshing your recollection. Do you recall putting in your report that it appeared to you that some of the blood was still wet?
In certain parts, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Deputy. No further questions.
Redirect?
Just one quick question. Mr. Dowdy asked about the garage door and opening the garage door. Was that, and you found a garage door opener? Where was that? I guess my question is, you didn't use the keypad outside.
Correct.
Open. How did you open the garage door?
So where Cody was laying, that pedestrian door, if you will, between the home and the garage
Right.
opens up. And around to the left of there was a button mounted on the wall.
Okay, and that just opens the garage door.
That's correct.
All right. I have nothing more, Your Honor.
Members of the jury, do you have any questions of this witness? All right, if you could please write it down. Deputy Moderson, there's some questions that some of our jurors have.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Did the officer, which I assume is you, have any prior statement for him to assume code 32 self-inflicted?
Did I have any prior what, I'm sorry?
Statement that may have led him to believe for him to assume code 32 self-inflicted.
No, there was no prior statements or anything that lead me to believe that. That was based on, typically when we see that kind of situation, we're coming into it, that's sort of the first thought that comes, and then I was like, wait a minute, what am I doing? I'm kind of scanning then, and what am I seeing? And that's when I kind of retracted that, if that makes sense.
The next question is, was there an alarm in the house?
That I do not know.
What times did he call Grant? And I assume he is
Can I
you.
back up real quick?
Yes.
I'll say when I entered, no alarm sounded.
What times did he call Grant? And I assume he is you. So what time did you call Grant?
Did I call Grant? Prior to entry into the home, I will add that his phone, the number that I had for him, was disconnected. And I can't say exact time that I tried calling, but it was prior to entry into the home.
Did any phones go straight to voicemail?
Yes. Cody's phone went straight to voicemail, and I believe the mother's, I had two numbers for mom, work and cell, and I believe the cell phone went through to voicemail, straight to voicemail. Or, I'm sorry, both of them went to voicemail. Nobody answered either one.
Whose cell phone was that they showed?
I can't testify to that.
State, do you have any follow-up questions based on those questions?
Yes, I do. Deputy Moderson, if I heard you correctly, and you tell me if I'm wrong now, when you first saw Chad's body, you thought that it was self-inflicted? Or that was a possibility?
There was so much blood, that was a possibility. That's the initial thought that came to my mind, and like the normal human thought, I suppose. And then my training experience kind of took over. It's like, wait a minute, why am I assuming this? I shouldn't be. And that's when I retracted that. I didn't see any obvious self-inflicted gunshot wounds.
Okay, but let me ask you, why did you, when you first did see him, why did you, put aside your training, why did you immediately think may have been self-inflicted?
When all the different types of calls that we go to, the majority that we see, this is fortunately, in the minority, the majority of calls that we see when we see this amount of blood and things is a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And so I think that's why I sort of went there initially, but then my conscious thought sort of took over and went, why am I assuming that? It shouldn't be.
Okay.
And so I corrected that on the radio just so, so that was out there that we don't know what we have.
Okay, thank you
Good.
very much.
No questions, Joe.
Any more questions from any members of the jury? All right, may this witness be excused and released.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you, Your
Deputy
Honor.
Moderson. You're excused and you're released from your subpoena. All right, at this time, the state may call their next witness.
State will call Arthur Riggler.
We gonna take a break?
Why don't we take a break before, we had taken a break earlier after the first witness, but we'll take another break, a brief recess before this witness. All right. Okay, we'll take a short recess